The Concorde's message arrived without ceremony, a cold pulse of data transmitted directly into every council member's holostream. No preamble. No negotiation. Just words that cut sharper than any blade. 72 hours. Submit, or be corrected. On Earth, the alert blinked silently in the subterranean operations room of Fort Solis, where humanity's fleet command had waited for decades for a day that would never come, or so the galaxy assumed. Admiral Rhea Solis stood at the edge of the holomap, eyes scanning the shimmering outline of the solar system. The blue marble of Earth rested at its center, fragile yet defiant. She did not flinch. 72 hours, she said, her voice low, measured. They have no idea what they're asking. Her second-in-command, Captain Lien Ortega, shifted uneasily. They've never responded like this before. Silence usually slows them, confuses them. This feels different. Rhea turned, gaze sharp. Good. Confusion is an advantage. They've grown arrogant. They've forgotten what it takes to survive a species. In the council hall of the Concorde, High Chancellor Vorkan paced. 8 meters tall, his multi-jointed limbs brushing against the ceiling, his eyes, black facets, reflected the holographic map of the Sol system. To him, humans were anomalies, stubborn, unpredictable, far too dangerous to ignore. He tapped a claw against the hollow console, sending a ripple of energy across the projected fleets. 3 days, he hissed, each word vibrating the council chamber. 72 hours for a civilization to obey. If they refuse, we strike. Their silence cannot be tolerated. The chamber's diplomats shifted uneasily. Vorkan's patience had thinned over centuries, and the humans' refusal to communicate, ever, was a provocation. To him, humanity was a child that needed discipline. To the humans, it had simply been survival. Back on Earth, Rhea walked among the tactical consoles, each manned by officers trained to respond in milliseconds. She did not speak to impress, she spoke to convey certainty. In the corners of the room, engineers monitored energy outputs from the orbital hangars, hidden from any alien scan. The line of dawn slept quietly behind the sun, 2,000 ships folded into the shadows, each a masterpiece of human ingenuity. Captain Ortega's voice broke through the hum of the room. Admiral, the Concorde will expect us to respond formally. They've sent emissaries. Rhea's eyes narrowed. Emissaries will find empty channels. Humanity does not negotiate from fear. We negotiate from strength, or not at all. The last time humans had been subjugated was written in scars. The collapse of the 22nd century, when plague, famine, and orbital bombardments had reduced Earth to rubble, had forged a single lesson: never yield. Never beg. Never explain more than necessary. A holographic alert blinked. Universal scanners detecting unprecedented energy signatures. Ortega's brow furrowed. The sun, it's heating? That's impossible. Rhea tapped the console. It is not impossible. It is preparedness. They won't see this coming. Not yet. Not until it's too late. Her gaze lingered on the star at the center of their system, a sphere of white fire and life. Behind it, humanity's silent army waited. Every ship, every engine, every weapon had been perfected in secrecy. It was not pride that fueled her confidence, it was memory. Her childhood had been spent among ruins, learning that survival demanded patience, cunning, and foresight. The galaxy would soon learn the same lesson. A soft chime interrupted the tense silence. Communications. A Concorde drone, shimmering in blue-white light, hovered in low orbit. Its message was simple, a request for parley. Rhea studied the message. They want a dialogue, she murmured. They want words. Let them have the theater of words while we prepare the stage. Ortega hesitated. Admiral, are we not risking escalation? Rhea's eyes were steady, unmoving. The escalation is not ours. It is theirs. They crossed the line centuries ago when they assumed we would always bow. We have merely waited. The drone's sensors probed, scanning for life, for fleet signatures, for weakness. It found none. Humanity had perfected silence as armor. Rhea turned to her crew, her voice rising just above the hum of consoles. Every ship is ready. Every pilot is prepared. When the time comes, we will not beg. We will not negotiate from fear. We will hold the line, because holding the line is the first law of survival. Humanity does not compromise its sovereignty. In the Concord Hall, Vorkan's patience snapped. Send the fleet to enforce. His voice was thunder across dimensions. Show them that no species escapes correction. Among his counselors, some whispered warnings. They had seen Earth's quiet resistance for centuries. They had seen no fleets, no signs of true technological advancement, and yet the humans endured. Was it luck? Coincidence? Or a terrifying mastery beyond their comprehension? Back on Earth, Rhea watched the projection of approaching Concord vessels. Ships the size of city blocks, bristling with energy cannons, moving toward the Sol system with deliberate menace. Her crew's tension was tangible, but she did not flinch. Ortega finally spoke, voice low. What will we tell them, Admiral, if they ask why we built this army? Rhea's answer was simple, unyielding, and precise. We will tell them the truth. Not to threaten, not to provoke, but to declare the first and last law of humanity. We do not kneel. The sun glared over the holographic display. Behind its blinding light, the human fleet stirred in silence, engines humming, weapons charging. In orbit on Earth's surface, children slept unaware that their world was about to declare itself a force no galaxy could ignore. Rhea took one last look at the system she had sworn to protect. Let them arrive, she whispered. We've been waiting far longer than they imagine. Outside the operations room, the lights of Earth glinted across the oceans. The planet was quiet, almost fragile in appearance, yet beneath that fragile surface lay decades of planning, preparation, and promise. Humanity would speak, but only in action. The universe would remember this day, not for words, but for deeds. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy's greatest enigma revealed itself. The silence of Earth had ended. The sun had barely cleared the horizon when the first human warships slipped from shadow into orbit. They moved like shadows stretched over steel, their black holes absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Each vessel bore the subtle, silent precision of centuries of meticulous design, a testament to a species that had learned to endure and to plan beyond the comprehension of other civilizations. Admiral Rhea Solis watched the display, her fingers tracing the contours of the line of dawn, her fleet of 2,000 vessels hidden behind the sun until now. The human fleet had been built in secret, beyond the gaze of the galaxy's prying sensors, in orbital shipyards that had once been mere myths to the outside world. Now, the fleet revealed itself in controlled precision, each ship positioned in a perfect lattice around Earth. Admiral, Captain Leon Ortega said, voice taut. We're detecting Concord vessels scanning the system. They've noticed energy anomalies. They're trying to locate our ships. Rhea's eyes did not leave the holomap. Let them search, she said quietly. The more they hunt, the more they will understand the scale of our patience. Humans prepare for centuries and act in moments. Ortega hesitated, as if questioning the audacity of their plan, but the discipline in Rhea's tones silenced him. He had served under her long enough to know that hesitation now could cost humanity its last advantage. Across the galaxy, Concord scouts adjusted their sensors, flicking through spectral bands, analyzing gravitational signatures, and attempting to detect what should have been impossible. Energy readings spiked with no apparent source. Fleets large enough to eclipse moons moved in silence, hidden behind the blinding glare of a sun. Panic rippled through their ranks, but it was disciplined panic. The closest alien minds could approximate human cunning, at least in theory. Rhea walked among her officers, moving from console to console with quiet authority. Every weapon online, she instructed. Every pilot briefed. Our ships will move as one. Concord cannot anticipate our formations. They cannot predict human resolve. Ortega's hand hovered over the communications console. Admiral, we have the chance to send a message. They're watching, waiting for a formal response. Should we Ria's gaze was unwavering. Let them wait. Let them see that we do not respond out of fear. Let them learn that silence is not weakness. Humanity's power is patience. Our answer comes when we choose to act, not when they demand it. In the orbital hangars, engineers ran final checks. Each ship in the line of dawn had been overbuilt, layered with redundant systems, and reinforced with materials refined to near perfection. Weapons arrays, previously invisible to Concorde sensors, hummed with restrained energy. Missiles, drones, and plasma arrays waited in silent readiness. A young pilot, barely 22, stepped forward from the ranks of the trainees. His voice trembled despite rigorous training. "Admiral, are we ready? I mean, truly ready?" Ria looked at him, her expression softening only for a moment. "You've trained for this your whole life. Every calculation, every maneuver, every lesson learned from our history has brought us here. You are ready. The galaxy will see what humans do when they are forced to choose survival." The young pilot nodded, swallowing the weight of her words. Around them, the fleet's hum intensified, as though the ships themselves were aware of their imminent emergence. Meanwhile, the Concorde's High Chancellor, Vorken, convened an emergency meeting. His advisors projected the energy spikes and orbital disturbances onto a massive holomap. "Impossible," he growled. "These readings suggest a fleet of unimaginable scale. Where were these ships hiding? How could a civilization so isolated produce such armaments?" A counselor, voice quivering with restrained fear, replied, "They may have been hiding behind the sun for centuries, Your Excellency. Humanity is patient and unpredictable." Vorken slammed a claw against the console. "Patience? This is defiance. They have violated every expectation. They are not a species to bargain with, they are a weapon." Back on Earth, Ria allowed herself a brief smile. Not for pride, not for vengeance, but for recognition of the truth long hidden. Humanity had grown silent, not weak. They had endured devastation, rebuilding in secret, honing skills the galaxy assumed were dormant. And now, at last, the quiet giant had awakened. A communication channel activated without her command. The Concorde had sent a single drone, attempting to establish dialogue. Its message was simple. "Identify yourselves. Withdraw your forces." Ria leaned forward, fingers brushing the console. "Not yet," she said. "Let them realize the scope of our preparation. Let them feel the consequences of underestimating us." Ortega frowned. "But Admiral, if they interpret silence as aggression..." Ria turned sharply. "Silence is not aggression. Aggression is measured by intent, and our intent is clear: we will not be subjugated. That is all." The sun's corona glinted off the fleet now, revealing faint outlines to the Concorde's sensors. One by one, the massive ships began to align, forming the intricate lattice Ria had designed for maximum defensive advantage and psychological impact. The fleet's geometry was artful, precise, an unspoken warning written in steel and energy. Ortega whispered, almost to himself, "It's beautiful, and terrifying." Ria's eyes softened briefly at his words. "Beauty is preparation, Ortega. Terrifyingness is consequence. We are both. Let them remember that." At the edge of the operations room, a technician pointed to the readouts. "Energy output stabilizing. Cloaking fields holding. Concorde sensors are blind to the fleet's full strength." Ria nodded, satisfied. "Then let the galaxy watch, and let them learn." Hours passed, and Earth rotated beneath them, calm and indifferent to the brewing storm above. Children played in sunlight on distant continents, farmers tended fields, engineers refined engines, all unaware that the culmination of centuries of planning had reached its first stage. Humanity had remained silent, underestimated, almost invisible. Yet all along, they had been preparing. Ria stepped onto the observation deck, the city lights below flickering like stars in their own right. She inhaled the crisp, engineered air of the command deck and whispered to herself, "Let them arrive. Let them see what patience, unity, and resolve can produce. Let the quiet giant wake." Somewhere beyond the system, Concorde fleets moved closer, unaware that they were approaching not a planet, but a wall, a living declaration of human resilience. And as the sun rose fully, spilling golden light across Earth's surface, the galaxy's most underestimated species revealed the first evidence of what had been patiently forged. 2,000 warships, poised and ready, awaiting the moment when humanity would speak in deeds, not words. The quiet giant had awakened. And the universe would never forget. The Concorde fleet loomed on the edges of soul space like an oppressive shadow, each vessel larger than a city, bristling with weapon arrays and sensors designed to detect even the faintest heartbeat of resistance. From Earth's orbit, the display shimmered with the ghostly outlines of approaching alien ships, their forms unfamiliar yet unmistakably hostile. Admiral Rhea Solis stood on the command deck of Fort Solis, silent and immovable. Around her, officers monitored the sensor feeds, the soft hum of consoles filling the space like a controlled heartbeat. The human fleet remained cloaked for now, engines barely whispering, weapons fully armed but restrained. The balance between patience and provocation was delicate, and they had waited centuries to perfect it. "Admiral," Captain Leon Ortega said, voice tense, "they're positioning around the inner planets. They've scanned for the fleet multiple times. No detections yet, but their formations are shifting. They're expecting us to respond." Rhea's gaze remained fixed on the projection of the solar system. "Let them expect," she said quietly. "Expectations are dangerous. Humans act not from impulse but from necessity. If they fire first, they reveal weakness." A communication channel flickered to life. The Concorde had deployed a delegation, a holographic projection of High Chancellor Vorkan, his black faceted eyes locking on to Rhea's image. The Council's other members hovered behind him, their forms elongated and alien, moving with a grace that betrayed centuries of political cunning. "Admiral Solis," Vorkan began, his tone sharp and measured, "you have violated every expectation of the Concorde. Your silence was defiance. Your concealment of these fleets is an act of aggression. Withdraw immediately, or we will enforce compliance." Rhea's response was calm, deliberate. "High Chancellor, we have not moved against you. We do not seek conflict. Humanity's preparation is not provocation, it is survival. We do not kneel, and we do not negotiate from fear. That is all you need to understand." Vorkan's black eyes narrowed. "You mistake patience for wisdom. Humanity's arrogance will be its undoing. We have given you centuries to integrate into the Concorde. You have refused. Now you leave us no choice." Ortega whispered, barely audible, "They'll see our fleets soon if we don't act." Rhea turned to him, voice steady. "Let them see. Let them realize the magnitude of what they have underestimated." On the outskirts of the system, sensors registered a subtle shift. The cloaking arrays of the Line of Dawn began to disengage in calculated sequence. One by one, the human warships revealed themselves, engines glowing, weapons arrays forming a lattice that surrounded the inner planets like a wall of silent intent. The Concorde scanning devices, previously confident in their reach, now struggled to interpret what they were seeing. Vorkan's projection stiffened. "Impossible," he hissed. 2,000 vessels. No civilization could conceal such strength. This is not defense. It is a declaration." Rhea did not respond. Her eyes scanned the fleet reports, confirming every formation, every positioning. Centuries of preparation, decades of construction, and years of perfecting operational secrecy culminated in this moment. She allowed herself a brief smile, not of pride, but of recognition. Humanity had been underestimated for far too long. The first Concorde vessel, a massive warship bristling with weapon arrays, fired a single probe beam toward Earth, a test, a warning. In the command room, silence held for a heartbeat before Ortega spoke, voice tight. "They fired. A warning, they're calling our bluff." Rhea's expression did not change. "A warning is only a challenge to be measured. Let them measure carefully." The probe passed harmlessly through the outskirts of the fleet's lattice, encountering fields and deflectors engineered to absorb energy signatures without revealing the full scope of the armada. The Concorde could see, but they could not comprehend. Humanity's engineering was not brute force, it was meticulous precision, a symphony of anticipation. "Admiral," Ortega said, voice low, "should we respond?" Ria's gaze did not waver from the holographic projection of Concord vessels. "Response comes only when intent is revealed. Observation alone is sufficient for now. Let them understand that we do not act from impulse, but from necessity. Let them reconsider." A Concord captain's voice rang across the channel, urgent, almost trembling with barely concealed disbelief. "High Chancellor! The human fleet, it is enormous. Their formation is mathematically precise. We cannot engage without incurring catastrophic losses." Vorken's jaw tightened. "Then retreat is the only rational course." But within him, centuries of belief in the inevitability of his control warred with the reality before him. He had underestimated humans, as all species inevitably did. He had assumed silence was weakness. He had assumed secrecy implied technological inferiority. And now, he was confronted with the truth: humans were neither predictable nor submissive. They were calculated, patient, and relentless. On Earth, Rhea addressed her captains over the secure channel. "This is the moment every human has been preparing for. Not for conquest, not for revenge, but to declare our right to exist without subjugation. Our fleet is ready. Our weapons are ready. Our resolve is ready. We act only if forced." Ortega exhaled, the tension in the room palpable. "It's incredible. They can't even see half of what we're capable of yet." Rhea nodded. "Let them see incrementally. Fear is most potent when reason cannot keep pace with reality. The galaxy must adjust to the truth of humanity. We do not yield, and we do not kneel." Vorken's projection trembled slightly, a rare display of uncertainty. "Prepare for engagement," he said, voice low, almost to himself. "If they refuse to stand down, I will not hesitate. Humanity cannot be allowed to redefine the balance of the galaxy." Rhea's eyes narrowed. "Then let them try." The Concord fleet continued to maneuver, probes scanning, sensors probing, diplomatic channels open but unanswered. Earth remained still, silent, and unwavering. The fleet's lattice shimmered like a living wall, a testament to centuries of endurance and ingenuity. Every ship was a statement, every formation a message: humans will not bow. And somewhere, far from the inner planets, children played under Earth's sun, oblivious to the standoff unfolding above them. Farmers tended fields, engineers calibrated engines, and the planet rotated silently beneath the gaze of the galaxy. Humanity had spoken in silence for centuries, but now, at last, the quiet giant had revealed its first true word: we exist on our own terms, and we will not be moved. In that standoff, the galaxy felt for the first time the weight of humanity's patience, the depth of their resolve, and the reality of a species that had been underestimated for too long. The quiet giant had not yet acted. But it had awakened. The solar system held its breath. Across millions of kilometers, the Concord fleet hesitated, frozen by the sight before them. The full glory of the line of dawn had revealed itself at last. 2,000 human warships forming a lattice of perfect geometry, engines glowing like distant stars, weapon arrays humming with silent menace. Admiral Rhea Solis stood on the observation deck of Fort Solis, her hands clasped behind her back. She did not revel in the display. Pride had no place here. This was about survival, about the declaration of sovereignty, and the undeniable truth that humanity would no longer bow to the whims of the galaxy. A channel opened. High Chancellor Vorken appeared in full projection, his black faceted eyes reflecting disbelief, fury, and something deeper, fear. "Admiral Solis," he began, voice trembling with an unaccustomed uncertainty, "withdraw your fleet immediately. You are outmatched in every conceivable metric. Do not force our hand." Rhea's voice was calm, deliberate, carrying the weight of centuries. "High Chancellor, we are not outmatched. You overestimate your authority and underestimate our patience. This fleet was built not to conquer, but to survive. We will not kneel. We will not beg. And we will not negotiate from fear." A tense silence filled the comms channel. For a moment, the Concord officers in their own fleet recoiled, sensing the impossibility of their position. The humans had anticipated every move, prepared for every escalation, and acted only when it mattered most. Vorkan's hand flicked, and a warning salvo was fired. The beam streaked across the void, a line of deadly energy arcing toward Earth's orbit. It was precise, calibrated to warn, not destroy, but enough to test human resolve. Rhea watched the trajectory calmly, then gave a single command. Activate defensive arrays. Hold formation. Let them see restraint is not weakness. The Concorde beam struck the first of the outer defensive satellites. Sparks arced, sensors flared, but no ships were lost. The Line of Dawn responded seamlessly. Automated countermeasures absorbed, deflected, and neutralized the energy strike without revealing the fleet's full strength. Every Concorde pilot realized, for the first time, that the humans had anticipated even this. Ortega turned toward Rhea, awe in his eyes. They'll think they've provoked us, and yet we haven't even begun to act. Rhea's gaze hardened. We act only if forced? The message must be clear: humanity's patience is not weakness. Our restraint is not compromise. And our existence is non-negotiable. From the Concorde flagship, Vorkan's voice cut across the void, tense and commanding. Admiral Solis, I give you one final warning. Stand down. Withdraw, or face annihilation. Rhea's reply was succinct, unwavering. Leave our system. Now. And we will not trouble each other again. Fail, and you will learn the true cost of underestimating humanity. For a moment, nothing moved. The Concorde fleet, formidable and vast, seemed paralyzed by the realization that they were facing a civilization far beyond what their centuries of observation had suggested. Each of their captains, each counselor, felt the weight of history pressing against them. This was not a simple species, not a simple challenge. Humanity was deliberate, patient, and implacable. Then, a Concorde general whispered to Vorkan, almost pleadingly, High Chancellor, if we engage, we cannot win without catastrophic losses. They anticipated us. Every calculation, every maneuver, they've planned for it. Vorkan's claws flexed, his anger battling reason. In the silence that followed, he realized the truth he had long denied. Humans were not merely defiant. They were incomparable in strategy, cohesion, and resolve. The moment of judgment had arrived, not for them, but for him. Finally, the Concorde began a cautious withdrawal. Engines flared as vessels altered trajectory, slowly retreating from the Sol system. Communications channels opened, but no words passed. The galaxy had witnessed a declaration that did not require shouting. Humans had spoken through action. On the observation deck, Rhea allowed herself a single exhale. Around her, the crew remained tense, ready for the slightest misstep. Yet the fleet held its formation, silent, resolute, unwavering. Humanity had acted not from vengeance, but from the absolute necessity of self-preservation. Ortega turned to Rhea, voice low. Admiral, they'll remember this day for centuries. The galaxy will never underestimate humanity again. Rhea nodded. They will remember. But we must remain vigilant. This is not victory, only declaration. Humanity's path forward has never been easy, and it will not be now. The galaxy will watch, and we must continue to be worthy of that watch. On Earth, children played under the sun, oblivious to the war machines that had just ensured their future. Farmers harvested crops, engineers fine-tuned orbital infrastructure, and humanity went about its quiet, deliberate existence, all under the shadow of 2,000 warships, a reminder that the species they had underestimated had awakened. In the observation deck's quiet, Rhea allowed herself a rare reflection. The centuries of preparation, of silence, of relentless focus, had culminated in this single moment. The galaxy had believed it could force humanity to its knees. Instead, it had encountered a civilization that refused to bend, that refused to compromise its sovereignty, that acted with precision and patience to defend itself without needless violence. Rhea's gaze drifted outward to the inner planets, to the sun glinting against the hulls of her fleet. Never again, she whispered. Never again will we bow, never again will we be silent when survival is at stake. Somewhere in the distant reaches of the galaxy, the story of Earth's standoff spread. Historians, strategists, and diplomats alike would record the events, the day humanity revealed its patience, its ingenuity, and its resolve. The day the quiet giant finally spoke. And for humanity, it was not triumph or glory that lingered, it was affirmation. Centuries of survival, of endurance, of preparation, had culminated in a single truth: no civilization, no matter how vast or arrogant, could dictate the fate of a species unwilling to yield. The Concorde fleets faded from Sol's orbit, leaving behind a stunned, uneasy silence. Across the system, the line of dawn remained at readiness, engines idling, weapons charged, formations perfect. Humanity had said enough. The galaxy would never forget. Rhea stepped back from the observation deck, her shoulders heavy with responsibility yet unbowed. Around her, the crew moved with quiet purpose, returning to duty, to the ongoing vigilance that defined their species. There would be no celebration, only the continued commitment to survival and sovereignty. Above the surface of Earth, the first evening stars began to glimmer. Humanity's gaze remained fixed upward, not in fear, but in certainty. They had endured, they had prepared, and they had acted. The quiet giant had spoken. The galaxy had listened. And the day humanity said enough would echo for millennia to come.